Radio Cairo, FM 95.4. The Voice of Egypt.
This is World of Info from Radio Cairo. What a start. This is World of Info from Radio Cairo, and it is 2 minutes past 4, and we are coming live from Studio 3 with Dua Muhammad at the controls. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk, and this is World of Info, and today we have the one and only Nader Abbasi, the famous conductor, a great friend and a great music lover, and a man who has covered all the aspects of music. He is not only into classical music, which is, of course, his fondness of, but he had his say in making resurrection of the Egyptian music and movies of the musics and the sound music of all the Egyptian movies with Mrs. Saad Yunus. And he has his say also with the ABBA in his most recent concert. But today we are starting with the famous Nutcracker and giving you, our dear listeners, a preview of what Nader did almost 1 month ago when he conducted the Cairo Symphony Orchestra and the Cairo Opera House Orchestra in the famous Nutcracker Ballet. And it's always nice to meet you, Nader. Thank you very much for coming. It's a great pleasure and honor.
Thank you, Dr. Amr. It's always a pleasure.
Well, we had the pleasure and honor of having Nader with us, and I'm not giving any titles because the friendship goes back to many years, so you will not tell me a doctor, or else I'm going to tell you Maestro, Doctor, Nader, Abbasi, which are all his legitimate titles. So, Nader, tell us about the Nutcracker, because Tchaikovsky has a very big place in the hearts of everyone, I believe, right?
Of course, all over the world. Tchaikovsky, especially Nutcracker for the Christmas time. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not only in Egypt, because Nutcracker, we always do it here as a tradition now. Mm-hmm. Always during the Christmas time and the New Year, we do Nutcracker with a ballet, with the Cairo Ballet Company and the Cairo Opera Orchestra. But actually, when I'm living in Europe also half of the time, so I found that nearly all opera houses, during the Christmas time, if they have a ballet company, they do also Nutcracker. Mm-hmm. It's a tradition. It's a wonderful music. It's during Christmas, the story. So it's, of course, Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky, it's like touching all hearts. And also the second act of Nutcracker, it's very special because we have a music from all over the world. You have the Spanish dance, you have the Oriental dance, you have the Russian dance, you have, it's Chinese dance. So it's a very international as music, because Tchaikovsky tried to imitate a little bit the tradition of each country in the second half. So it's really wonderful, and it's one of the best music of Tchaikovsky. It's a masterpiece, and it's also very difficult to play and very difficult to dance.
Well, coming to this, we have to discuss Tchaikovsky as a very complex personality. I mean, the man was very talented. He died in the early age of 53 or 54, and this, of course, is an early age. It considerably in the 19th century because of the lack of physical care and medical care. 53 is acceptable as an age of death, but definitely a man with such vivid music and such talent and such joy that he brings through all his pieces. I mean, not a single piece of Tchaikovsky doesn't bring hope and happiness and charm to the life of the listener. But the man was very depressed. You know this, of course.
Yes, of course.
And even there is some big question marks. Did he die from self-inflicted wound, or did he die from cholera or dysentery, as they said before? But his character and his depression was not shown in his music. Don't you think this is very strange?
No, it was shown actually in the end. If we hear the Sixth Symphony, the last symphony, the Pathétique, the end of it is very strange because Tchaikovsky known to do such a glamour and very showy ending of his music, always very loud and very showy and very bright, and in the end, slowly we found that he did this kind of very sad and very soft, very dark, I have to say. And the Sixth Symphony, of course, it's the signature of that. So he finished the Sixth Symphony with a very special way. It's like the heartbeat, you know. It's like stopping slowly. So it's like a very how we call it, very special for such a composer, for such a glamour and very high and very loud and very expressive music to finish the symphony like that. And this was his last symphony actually. So of course we can find in his music even the joy, the music with lots of joy. You can find very melancholic, we call it, in his music. I mean, it's very touchy and very. Of course, this side, the Oriental side of the Russians, it's very also near to Oriental people, and the Oriental scales is very sad. Actually, it's the minor scale we call it. So he used a lot of minor scales, and for that, it's a little bit melancholic.
But when we look at him with his character, I mean, he was the great pioneer in invading the Western music, and one of the first Russian composers who can find really identification and recognition in the outside world. A man who visited France, took some music from there and took some music from Austria and from England, and yet was able to have his own entity. Makes him one of the most popularly played music. I mean, I read once in a research that says that the most classical symphonies and classical music that is played all over the world, there is always
Tchaikovsky. Yes, because it's easy to listen, very impressive, and very showy for the orchestra. So it's and loud and beautiful melodies always. Like, I mean, he have this talent to give you this fantastic melodies all over his work.
Yes, so like Tchaikovsky number 1 symphony,
concerto, piano concerto,
and violin concerto as well.
And the violin concerto, and the symphonies, all the symphonies from the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, all the melodies inside, all the ballet, all his opera also. It's very, very beautiful music. So it's always easy to listen, very touchy, and very showy and impressive at the same time.
And very difficult to play, to conduct, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it has a tradition. You have to have the right sound from the orchestra. We call it the Russian sound, which is it's very special for the string section, especially, and even the Russian brass has a special sound. And in his way of writing, you can find it in the chord, and which is the strings. If we play with a French orchestra, Tchaikovsky, you have to work a lot with the French people to bring this Russian sound, and it's a school. We call it they play with a Russian school. This soloist has a Russian school because it's a way of playing. So if you don't have it, the symphony sounds different.
Really?
Yeah. So it's even like a German sound, we call it the French sound. Each country has a sound.
So
in
the Cairo
orchestras.
Symphony Orchestra, because you had a lot of Russian training, and so at that time was
Yes,
Soviet
yes,
training.
yes.
You can say that the Egyptian Cairo
We have a
Symphony
Russian
Orchestra,
school.
we have a Russian
sure.
school,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And some of the Russian or Eastern Bloc players are still working with us in the
Exactly,
in the band, right?
exactly. We still have this tradition, and all the strings in the conservatoire in Cairo, they have a Russian school, and even the woodwind, even the brass, because before the 80s,
Yes.
it was the Russian school.
Yes.
The professors was all Russian, even for the ballet, and then they left on 1980.
Yes.
And from that time, of course, the young students at the time, they became now professors.
Yes.
So they have the same school.
Yura is a wind player. You used to play in the beginning
The bassoon, yes.
the bassoon, and I find, I mean, as the more I get to listen and the more to go to the opera house, I find that the bassoon is really well identified parts in any symphony. You can always find
And-
a lot of sentences that can be produced by that, right?
Funny enough, Tchaikovsky wrote a lot for the bassoon.
Yes, this is what I like about that.
Yes, the Sixth Symphony started with a bassoon solo,
Yes.
and he used the bassoon with all the technique. I mean, with all the colors that you can bring from this instrument, because the bassoon you can find it a lot in the cartoon, Tom and Jerry and stuff. And we have a program here in Egypt. Also very famous for children. I don't know the name now.
Sesame.
Boogie and Tom Tom.
Boogie and Tom Tom, yes.
The melody of Boogie and Tom Tom is also with the bassoon. So it can be very funny and it can be very sad and very dramatic, the bassoon. And Tchaikovsky used the bassoon both ways. So it's really great. When we play symphony or Tchaikovsky, all bassoon players are very happy to play
Because
the
they have a
Tchaikovsky
big role.
because they have a big role. Exactly.
So talking about the bassoon, you once told me in one of our interviews that you went to the conservatoire in a very early age, and there suddenly you found the master of the house, if we may use the expression, said you are going to play it so, and you're going to be a violinist, you're going to be a pianist, and he said you're going to be a bassoon player. Did you like that? You didn't like that in the beginning, right?
No, in the beginning it was a Russian school actually. It was
Yes.
a Russian committee, and they came and they told me I have to play the bassoon, and I didn't know what the bassoon is. So it's always in the beginning, you know, if you don't know the instrument you don't like to play, you would like to play the piano, the cello, the flute, any instrument that you really know a little bit. But the bassoon, I didn't know what's this. So after of course I loved it after.
What was how come do they reach this decision? I mean, why? Is it the
Because
physique?
the
or-
physical, yeah, it's a physical because it's a big instrument, so you need a big man and the fingers, the mouse. It needs to be special for the bassoon. So they immediately they told
They
me bassoon,
characterized you.
the bassoon is for you. So it's in the beginning of course I was a little bit sad, but after 1 year and a half it was fine. I mean.
But you managed to go to also the composing section where you took a lot of piano classes.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you found
exactly.
I mean, you always find your ways, right? I mean,
Exactly.
you never say no, right?
Yeah, if
You'll
you
always-
really-
if you really,
If
now
you
I
really
know
need
you.
something, yeah.
You're tough. You'll not give up or give in, right?
No,
okay, we'll
no,
take the
no.
bassoon, and we'll add to it some voice notes and become a singer, and also become a composer,
Yeah.
and become a pianist,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then become a conductor, right?
Yes. Yes, after all.
So this is what we call toughness, and you are a tough cookie, Nader. So talking about toughness, let's go to softness, and let's listen to this section from the Nutcracker, and we'll talk after the break about this.
Yeah.
Wow. What is this segment that we played from the Nutcracker? Tell us about it, because off air you have just given me a great explanation. Please, Nader, tell me about it.
Okay, no, it's not. I mean, this is the pas de deux, we call it, of the Nutcracker, which is one of the famous number ever. Musically and for the choreographers also. I mean, it's really special and it's very well written, and one of the most beautiful melody from nothing. I mean, because it's like a scale coming down. We call it as a composer, we call it, it's just a scale coming down.
Tell us about the scale, because you mentioned it for the listeners. Just you said tarara. Just say this, please, in front. And that's it.
That's it. From that, he made all this piece. I mean, it's like
it's the same,
starting.
it's the same note.
It's just just that he made all this piece. Starting very slow with the cello, playing the melody, then slowly the violin start to play the melody, then the flute and oboe start to play the same melody, but the orchestration start to build up until the end. And the signature of Tchaikovsky, of course, in the end with the timpani and the chords like that to finish really loud. I mean, it's like pas de deux, duet d'amour. It's like a love duet. And then we start, in the ballet, because after all this music from all this country, all over the countries, we have this pas de deux starting after the flower valse, which is also very, very famous valse for Tchaikovsky.
We find the
valse de
soloist,
fleurs,
the male soloist,
and the main soloist start now the duet d'amour,
the man and the
pas de
lady,
deux,
right?
and the man, the lady, the main characters. Then each one of them start now to have his own show. Slowly after that, then we go to the end of the ballet. But this is a very famous moment in Nutcracker.
And a typical end of a Tchaikovsky piece is the magnificent end, the Russian end from those days.
Exactly. After all,
so definitely this is beautiful, and I always remember that Russians are really famous for classical music. And a friend of mine who was the Chilean ambassador in Cairo once told me that he asked to go to Moscow to spend a tenure or as in his diplomatic career, just to know the fact that every day he has a concert to attend 365 days in Moscow. So talking about the classical music and talking about the effect of the Russian music on the classical world and Tchaikovsky will lead us to a very beautiful segment that you have really surprised the audience of Egypt last summer, and it was a beautiful program that you presented with Mrs. Saad Yunus in Sahibat al-Saad. And you suggested on her, I believe that this was your own suggestion, is that you can get all the soundtracks of different Egyptian movies that have been made by the genius of Egypt and put them and orchestrate them and put them in a beautiful show that I believe will have, I will tell the listeners a secret, that it has another episode, the second part. But let's talk about the first part and tell us about this, please, Nader.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they came and they want me to do something with the orchestra at the program, and then we been thinking about lots of things, lots of ideas. And of course, we had this idea of the black and white Egyptian movies. There's lots of composers that nobody knows that they are Egyptians, and it was great music, and it was very badly recorded at the time. And it's very famous movies, we know it all, but the music, I mean, it's always the background, and if we put it really in the first track, yes, we can find the magnificent way of composing at the time. The composers we have, we don't know the names at the time. I mean, now if you see Rodda Qalbi movie or Dua Karawan and all these movies that you hear the music, and of course at the time also they had lots of classical music. At the same time they took from Tchaikovsky and Stravinsky and whatever, and they put as a track for the movie. But of course we had at the same time Egyptians, very good composers that nobody knows about. So
and
we said, why not?
Distributors, right? Like Andrea Ryder, for example?
Of course, and Andre Ryder was living in Egypt. Lots of foreigners was living in Egypt. But we had also like Fuad al-Zahiri, Ali Ismail, and lots of others. So we concentrated on Fuad al-Zahiri and Ali Ismail at the time. That they did lots of movies, and we wanted to just to to play some of the music. I mean, to remind people with this great music that we had at the time. So we had this idea, and then of course we bring a lot of also some new Egyptian composers like Moudi Imam, Khalid Hamad, also at the program, because they did very good movies. And we did some of the drama also, like from Ammar Shari'i also. We take a few, and people love Ammar Shari'i, love his music, but they didn't know about Fuad Zahiri. They didn't know really about Ali Ismail.
And Ali Ismail was
not the young generation, at least.
Was a great
Hassan Abu Saud also, and there is another. Even Muhammad Noor as a singer, he made also music for movies. So we have a lot. Kamel Tawil did also El Masir, very good movie, very good music. So it was a pleasure really to redo this music and to write it down again.
Was it easy for you to find the notes and write them? Or
no, we didn't find the scores. We didn't find, and I had a wonderful team work. Ahmed Al-Mugi, which is the young son of Muhammad Al-Mugi, very famous composer.
Yes.
And another two is George Kolta. It's also a conductor and a pianist. And Hussein Ghandour also, it's a musician from the Arabic Institute. So the three of them wrote the music of this program.
And they distributed every note for every instrument. So they made orchestration of these notes, not just writing them, right?
Just writing them. I didn't want them to change the real music. Of course, sometimes we didn't really hear from the movies the right note exactly. So we thought that it's maybe that. But most of them, we wrote exactly the same music as it is.
So I believe we should listen to one of these segments, and we make our comment after that. Okay?
Yes. Okay.
So really, this is nice. This is Ammar Shairi, of course, the famous Rafat Al-Haggan, and of course, it is part of the cult.
Yes,
Part
of course.
part of the
Years
Egyptian-
and years, and all the Egyptians love this music.
Yes, this
so we
piece of
had
music.
to do it, absolutely.
Yes, and definitely this was the fact that you have done orchestration of this. It was maybe performed before during Ammar's Shari'i's time, maybe by 6 or 7 instruments and some electronic instruments.
Exactly.
And then you have changed it into the whole
To a
orchestra.
real orchestra, a real big orchestra, and we played it with my orchestra, which is the United Philharmonic Orchestra.
How many players do you have in this
I
orchestra?
have 80 musicians.
Really, yes.
So, I mean, I have all the instruments, yes. We did the concert, I mean, with Magda Rumi.
Yes.
It's the same orchestra, which is the United Philharmonic, and I did a lot of things now with the United Philharmonic. It's the United from all over Egypt, the best musicians
Definitely.
all together.
And of course, the best conductor.
No.
When we talk about that, this reminds us, before we go into details about Sahibat al-Sa'ada, is about Magda Rumi. Magda Rumi is a very distinguished lady. I had the pleasure and honor to meet her and sit with her for a dinner, and really she is a very classy lady. And I remember, I've seen her before the concert. She just met you once, and she didn't yet attend the rehearsals. And then she said, "I'm very afraid. Nader has he's tall. Has a very deep voice, and I'm really afraid of him. I'm very petite, and he looks like a giant." I said to her, "He's a giant with a golden heart." Tell me about that, because she was afraid, and she said that we want to do maybe 5 or 6 rehearsals, and then you said to her, "No, it's only going to be 2 or 3, right?"
No, she wanted to have 23 rehearsals. And I said 4 or 5 max.
Yes.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't know what experience she had before with which orchestra. Maybe they had an orchestra needs maybe all these years. But I know my musicians, and I know how professional they are. And I know that in 4 or 5 rehearsals, it's much more than enough. I mean, the United Philharmonic, they play Stravinsky, Tchaikovsky,
They play every week, and
very
it's always. Tell me about the system. It's always 3 or 4 rehearsals every week, right? And then you find they self-started the concert.
You mean it's the symphony orchestra?
Symphony orchestra.
The symphony orchestra, they have 5 rehearsals also. I mean, 5
rehearsals,
from,
and then the 6th
some-
is the concert.
the general and then concert.
So
I mean, this is and they play very, very difficult things.
Yes.
So I mean, to be honest, Arabic music and even Arabic orchestration, it's much more easier than classical repertoire. So we don't need all these rehearsals, really. I mean, sometimes I do opera Aida in 4 rehearsals, which is 4 hours opera. So for me, I know that I can do this program very quickly.
And it was a great success. The lady loved that, and she said,
really...
"Every time I come to Cairo, I have to do it with you."
Yeah, of course.
Right.
No. Now we have a very good relationship. Now she trusts me, and of course, if you don't have the experience with, it's a feeling, it's a singer with a conductor, it's always a feeling.
Exactly.
If they don't have a good feeling together, it's always very difficult. So you have to know each other, and then you have to, feel each other, and then make it comfortable for both of them.
So definitely, how did it go? I mean, with Mrs. Saad Yunus, she started listening in, and I think that what I like about Mrs. Saad is that she has true emotions, and she has shown that, and we also share these emotions with her, because in this particular program you have chosen a lot of music segments that really, and music pieces that really has shaped the conscious and the memories of the Egyptians, because we belong to the era where the Egyptian movie was repeated every week, the same movie on Friday afternoon and the Thursday evening. Always we see these movies hundreds of times, and so you find yourself repeating the same notes. So when you find these notes coming from a big orchestra, this was really a great surprise.
Yeah. I mean, believe it or not, I don't watch TV, but when I watch TV, I put only black and white Egyptian movies.
Yes.
So I love the old Egyptian movies, and this is what really I like to watch on TV, because it put me in a very good mood. It's very funny, or very, very special, or very sad, or whatever. Very romantic, and it's the good time, the all time.
Yes.
So it's really great movie. So the music always touched me a lot, and then how effective the music in movies. You know, if you have a movie have an Oscar, always the music has an Oscar also at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes.
So it's very special and very important, the music part in a movie.
So this is lovely, and I think Dua has prepared for us another segment, and let's listen to it, and we make a final comment before going to the ABBA experience. Wow. This was
Khalid Hamad,
عمارة يعقوبيان.
عمارة يعقوبيان.
Yaqubian building, the famous novel by Ala al-Aswani, and,
Exactly.
and Adil Imam as the prime character. What do you think of this segment?
I love it. I love it really. Khalid Hamad is a wonderful composer, and I mean he orchestrates very, very well.
He's a
the
conservatoire
orchestration,
graduate,
he's a
right?
conservatoire guy, of course, and then he may have a very nice taste for the orchestration, and also the combination, the fusion between the West and the Oriental, you know, the Oriental and the West together, East and West. It's really nice, and you have this Egyptian instrument like the qanun, the ri, the nay, and then you have in the valse reply, you know, with the flute and horns and trombone, and then you have this wonderful valse, and then immediately you have again the Egyptian instrument to play to answer them. So this kind of fusion between the Arabic and the Western music, it's great.
And he was very happy with your orchestration, right?
I hope so.
So this brings us to the final note about, before we go to Abba experience, let's listen to this segment Dua has prepared for us, and let's see what she prepared. Wow, this is Rudda Qalbi,
Yes.
and the famous
Fuad
composer,
al-Zahiri.
Fuad al-Zahiri. A man, multi-talented man, a raw talent that has dignified himself with education, as you mentioned of record, and told me that he really started from the talent and upgraded this talent with learning and teaching and understanding under the auspice of Russian teachers, and even he learned in Russia for some time.
Yes. And he was a trumpet player, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And he was really a very talented man. He made lots of movies, Egyptian movies, and it touches all, you know, because it's really also very well orchestrated. But you can see it's very romantic, you know, at the time. If we can compare from Omar al-Shari'i to Khalid Hamad to Fuad al-Zahiri, you see that Fuad al-Zahiri, as an old generation, it was very romantic, very peaceful, very how you call it, easy to compose and to put the harmony. If we go to Khalid Hamad, of course, we started to have this abstract if we call about the painting. The abstract music, we call it the contemporary music. So we have special chords, very effective, you know, to the scene and stuff. So I really love Fuad Zahiri also, and he's cool, and at the time it was wonderful movies that he did.
So this takes us to another period. I mean, I always think that this has been always, you're working in different tracks. You do a lot of conducting of operas in the outer world, in Europe and in the United States of America, and always there is a repertoire for you, and I'm always monitoring this through the things that you post on Facebook about that and about your operas especially, and conducting symphonies. But this summer there was something nice. And I believe it was really touchy, and I really loved that. And let's listen to one of them, and we discuss that after this beautiful song.
I don't want to talk about things we've gone through, though it's hurting me. Now it's history. I've played all my cards, and that's what you've done too. Nothing more to say, no more ace to play. The winner takes it all, the loser standing small beside the victory. That's our destiny. I was in your arms, thinking I belonged there. I figured it made sense, building me a fence, building me a home, thinking I'd be strong there. But I was a fool, playing by the rules. The cats may draw their lies, their minds as cold as ice. When someone way down here loses someone dear, the winner takes it all, the loser has to go. It's simple and it's plain, so why should I complain? But tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you? Does it feel the same when she calls your name? Somewhere deep inside, you must know I miss you. But what can I say? The rules must be obeyed. The judges will decide their lives of me abide. Spectators of the show, always staying low. The game is on again, lover or a friend, a big thing or a small. The if it makes you feel sad, and I understand you've come to shake my hand. I apologize if it makes you feel bad, seeing me so tense with no self-confidence. But you see, the winner takes it all. The winner takes it
The winner takes it all. And you took it all, right? Tell us about that, because this was almost the first time that the original ABBA score, the band and the musicians, everyone but the four singers, because they are now retired,
Yes.
everyone who is related to ABBA played with you with the Swiss Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah, Geneva Chamber Orchestra.
In Geneva.
For the first time. I mean, listen, I mean, this is the first time the ABBA with the orchestra,
Yes.
with the Philharmonic Orchestra or whatever. I mean, a real big orchestra. So the orchestration was written recently to make this idea. I mean, and the saxophone player, the original, one of the original band players, he got the permission to do the orchestration, and he did it, and then voila. I mean, we call it, it's a booming, you know, everywhere now. I mean, we did this 2 concerts in Switzerland with
And there is a secret we'll tell the listeners. We're going to do it in Cairo, inshallah, I hope.
Inshallah, I hope you are trying now to bring them here also.
Because this is definitely a success. ABBA has a big, big, big place in the hearts of the Egyptians, I believe, from the age of 40 to 75, right? Everyone who's from 40
And
to
the young
70.
people, I mean, don't forget the Mamma Mia movie.
Yes. The
Because,
Mamma Mia
you
movie
know, it's all
introduced this
the
generation
ABBA,
to,
yeah, absolutely.
to ABBA, yes.
To a new generation, yeah.
Yes, yes.
And there is another second part of the Mamma Mia movie, so of course, I mean, everyone knows the ABBA.
So let's
now.
put it from 25, because Mamma Mia was 10 years back, right? Mamma Mia was 10
No,
years
no,
back.
no, no, that long?
Yeah, 10 years back. Time flies, my friend.
10 years.
Yes,
My God.
Mamma Mia was exactly, yes, 10 years, 2008, something like that. So 10 years ago, there was Mamma Mia. So all the people who watched the movie, they are now 25.
And the musical now, there is a Mamma Mia musical also.
Yes. I believe it will be a great success, because there's a lot of nostalgia in the air. There are a lot of people who wants, again, to get reminiscing of this period.
Yeah.
And of course, to find the whole original band. And the singers, even they look alike, the ABBA, and they, they are approved by the singers, right?
Of course.
The singers
Of course,
agreed
of
that
course,
they will do
we
the
have to.
roles, right?
Of course, of course.
But you didn't meet the original singers, unfortunately.
Not yet, not yet. Because maybe because you know I'm working in Sweden, so I go every 2 years because I'm one of the members of the international singing competition of Steinhammer. And this was the first time that I met the original band of ABBA. They came because the first recording they did for the music was with the Norrköping Symphony Orchestra, which an orchestra which I conduct a lot in Sweden, and they told me you have to conduct the ABBA concert with us. So I said okay, I would love to do it, and then it became like a real thing. Like
it's a dream that came true,
Yeah.
and the winner takes it all, definitely. And of course, we are talking about a beautiful band that has a place in the heart of everyone. So, unfortunately, we have to finish right now. Do you think so? But definitely the idea of sharing this information about the world of music, let's not say classical music only, is always good. I want you to promise me something, Nader, that next time we're going to talk and bring on with us the new Saad Yunus episode, and we'll talk more about your next concert in the Cairo Opera House, which is going to be played with the famous Ramzi Yassin.
Yes, we will do the Saint-Saëns fifth concerto, which is, we call it the Egyptian concerto, because he did it. He composed this concerto in Egypt, Saint-Saëns. So we will do this concerto and we do Beethoven Mess.
So how can a Russian symphony orchestra, that's Cairo Symphony Orchestra, play a French?
No, it's not that. I mean, Russian is cool, but it's different now. I mean, because we have the young generation, the musicians, they travel a lot, they have scholarships in France, in Germany, in England. So now we have a different class. In Egypt, we have a very strong quality, I have to say, because different schools. So I can have the French sound, I can have the Russian sound, I can have the German sound, I can bring from them, and the Arabic sound, of course.
Last Saturday, I was listening to Cairo Symphony Orchestra, and there was the very famous pianist Wael.
Of course, he's a wonderful person, great musician,
and was very proud. He works now in Chicago, teaching music in Chicago University.
Yes.
And he visits Cairo once every year to play with the Cairo Symphony Orchestra, and I believe what a great talent. Right, you worked with him.
He's a very, very good talent, yes.
Yes.
And Muhammad Shams also, we have also another guy.
Yes, we saw Muhammad Shams a couple of months ago, and of course Wael as well. And the famous Ramzi Yassa is going to play with you. You're very lucky. Tell us about Ramzi Yassa as a final note.
I mean, Ramzi Yassa is a wonderful, wonderful person. I used to watch him play in the Gomoria Theater at the time when I was playing in the symphony orchestra. He was like that soloist that we love all, Ramzi Yassa, the Egyptian guy that he went to in Europe and he lives in Paris and So, and then, of course, slowly, we start to be very good, close friend, and he started to play with me, and then we went a lot to tour in Europe together. So we played together in France, in a lot of places together. Yes. So I have a very good contact with Ramzi, and we are really looking forward to play together.
It's a great pleasure to have with us the famous conductor, symphony conductor, Nader Abbasi, a great friend and a great talent. And we finally end with another song from ABBA. See you next Thursday, World of Info. And this was Mabrouk, and Dua Muhammad was at the controls.